Currents by Tame Impala was a cultural reset for indie music, as Kevin Parker created an influential album that blended numerous music genres with personal growth seamlessly. Okay, I got my toy here that I like to fidget with, especially while I'm working. These things are really helpful. Guys, when I tell you, I had so much fun researching for this video. If you're like a music nerd or super into instruments, this video is going to be pretty exciting for you. Like, you're going to flip out as much as I did doing research for this video. So I'm super excited to dive into it. As the project was spearheaded by Kevin Parker, Currents was Tame Impala's third studio album released in July of 2015 by Modular Recordings in Australia, Interscope Records in the US, and Fiction Records in the UK. Currents was performed, written, produced, and recorded all by Kevin Parker, which is crazy to think about. Aw, thank you. Callie, my dog, she just put her paw on my foot. She's such a sweetheart. Oh my God. In an article I was reading by Auto Technology, they called him, quote, the modern home studio poster boy, since he's able to create his own music within his own home. He had, quote, a ramshackle drum kit, a guitar covered in duct tape, and some battered vintage synths, according to Rolling Stone. Aside from the two studio rooms, there was a different room where he turned that into a lighting studio, where he'd have automatic stage lights on stands, which led to the light shows that you experience when you go to a Tame Impala concert, which I would totally recommend. I went to one back in 2022 and it was fucking amazing. The show was completely incredible. It was the first show in like my adult years that I went to, and I had so much fun, and the light show was just like the cherry on top. Kevin's about to go on tour again, so I might check the tour out for this album that's about to come out. For the album, he expanded a little bit more with Paste magazine when asked how much time he spends writing lyrics. Lyrics are such a big part for me. I can never really divide between the times I'm spending on things though, like the times I'm doing the engineering, the times I'm writing, the times I'm recording and writing lyrics. For me, it all happens at the same time. I could be sitting at the drums, literally playing the drum part to a song, listening back to the guide vocals, and have an idea for the lyrics for the first line of the second verse while I'm playing drums. Or I might think, oh, the bass guitar needs more distortion, while I'm going for a walk, thinking of lyrics. It's just the way I've grown up making music on my own. All those things sort of exist as one. I've never really seen them as separate roles, as if you were a band or a studio producer. Currents was a first because he mixed and recorded all the instrumentals by himself and had the vocals become more of a prominent piece within his music in comparison to the previous two albums where he kind of sounded a little bit more drowned out. According to Audio Technology, Kevin stated this on the mixing: because of the sound and the way the songs were coming together, it felt like an altogether different way of mixing anyway. I was combining things usually done in the electronic world, like looping whole sections of the mix while leaving others unlooped on top and filtering whole sections, but at the same time trying to get the drums to sound classic, awesome, and Dave Friedman-y. Dave Friedman is a huge name in the indie psych rock mixing world, as he produced and mixed for acts like The Flaming Lips, Sparkle Horse, MGMT, and Tame Impala's Lonerism. In the same article, Kevin talks about doing things that professional engineers would kind of find laughable. Things like not using Pro Tools and being amazed at what could be done just by using GarageBand. Quick sidebar, I have been looking up and doing a little bit of reading in terms of how to produce music in GarageBand. I just started literally, but I'm already so shocked all the shit you can do just using GarageBand. And I wanted to mention this because if you're making music on your own and you don't have access to any resources to make music or record, don't let that stop you, because you see the way Currents turned out. But he did end up buying a few things himself, and the article has that mapped out. The main adjustments to his mixing routine has been an analog summing setup that takes the task out of Ableton Live's hands and adds a bit of color to the stereo bus. He bought two 16-channel Lynx Aurora converters that feed a pair of passive 16-channel RMS 216 Fulcrum passive summing mixers. The sum of the 16 stereo channels hits a pair of Neve 1073 DPA preamps first to crunch the mix up, then an SPL vitalizer, the one piece he's had for a while and is just like a glorified EQ that adds a bit of artificial valve quality. The last thing strapped across the master bus is a manly Lawrie mood compressor before it gets fed back into the DAW to print. And he also talked about using Ableton Live for mixing, stating, "I love the sound of a mix being crunched together in analog. I love the sound of a desk, but I hate not being able to recall any time I want. I flip between songs, sometimes every few minutes. It goes completely against my workflow to have to set up for one song by going around the room and setting EQ knobs on a desk and adjusting faders to how the mix was last time. It's against how I've grown up working. I find live so expressive. The whole point of it is that you can link anything to anything, and the automation is amazing. When I've been standing over someone's shoulder watching them use Pro Tools to automate stuff, it seems so laborious. It doesn't want you to automate. It doesn't want you to change things that are so easy to change on Ableton. I make our live shows on Ableton as well, which demonstrates how versatile it is. The basis of it is just so flexible, and I can move almost as quick as my brain is moving." And since he was taking on everything himself, Kevin was asked by Spin magazine about being burnt out. Making songs and talking about them are two completely different things. Like, I'm burnt out as making the songs and making the album and mixing it. Mixing is always the hardest part. It's always the most draining part, but that's a sign that I've put my all into it. If I didn't feel like a completely emptied out sack of an artist, if I didn't feel like a tube of toothpaste where every single drop has been squeezed out, I probably wouldn't be as satisfied. There's something sickeningly satisfying about knowing that you've got nothing left in you. We know, much like today with the changing of direction musically, Tame Impala's first two albums, Inner Speaker and Lonerism, were way more alt-psych and any rock influence, which I don't think this is a super unique of an opinion, but I want Elephant from Lonerism injected into my veins, just to put that out there. But Currents is a shift away from that sound from the previous two albums, leaning more into psychedelic synth and electropop with a little bit of R&B and disco influences sprinkled in there. And it has been noted that most of the chord progressions within the album were heavily influenced by R&B. With Stereo Gum and Kevin shared, "When I was a young teenager, that was like late 90s, early 2000s, stuff that I used to think I wasn't meant to like because I was a grunge kid. Not even grunge and rock or whatever. I was a musician and I was a music guy. And music guys aren't allowed to be into R&B when they are teenagers because all the teeny bopper kids blast that shit in their cars. So that would mean I was categorically opposed to it, you know? And I guess it just took me about 15 years to realize that it had nothing to do with the music. It was just the association with people and types of people. So when I learned that, it was an extremely liberating time because I felt like I could do anything. I could embrace anything." According to Grantland, Kevin also tried to steer away from making pop-heavy music because he thought indie snobs would be unimpressed, but he gave credit to him becoming more open-minded to the idea because of producer Mark Ronson, who he worked with for the album Uptown Special for a few songs. And Kevin also said, "I always liked pop music. I love what it does to my brain, and I've shut it out for a long time. The more I question myself about why I think pop is taboo, the more I realize that it's not." With all of this being said, Parker allegedly wanted to change his sound to literally make people dance to his music in clubs and similar settings. He shared with Rolling Stone, "I wouldn't say making psychedelic music is my focus. That's not the modus operandi for Tame Impala. It's about making music that moves people." And he also said this in an NME article. That is a tongue twister. NME. Why is that so hard to say? NME. Oh my God. Psychedelia is not these instruments plus these instruments plus these scales equals psychedelia. Nor is it a genre. It has nothing to do with guitar or synths. Psychedelia is a sensation. It's when you transport people. When you feel like you're outside your own skin. Mission accomplished. While under the influence of psychedelic drugs, Kevin began to think that songs that wouldn't be deemed to have a psychedelic mood could still have the same qualities. And the song that inspired this, Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees. And he painted the picture of this moment in a Guardian interview But later, during a conversation with Paste, Kevin shared that the quote about him having and being inspired by the song was completely taken out of context. It turns out that a fan had given him some chocolates without consent, or letting him know that it wasn't just chocolate at all. And so Kevin and those who ate it with him were like, "F it," and kept eating it anyway because they actually did like it. But still, that's unhinged in a really bad way. In an interview with Spin, Kevin went into a little bit more detail about kind of rule bending and genre bending. I think, and this is going to come across extremely cliche, the only rule was to make an attempt to abandon the rules that I've set up in the past. They weren't like conscious rules or anything, but just boundaries that I had put up for myself. Things like not using drum machines, not using certain effects that in the past I would have considered cheesy or musically taboo, but only for me at my most snobby, musically and intellectually snobby. Because the other part of me, I love all music that makes you feel good. All pop music. Well, not all pop music. I shouldn't say that. There are parts of me that would just make instantly gratifying music, and a part of me that is dedicated to making music with depth. Something you can sink your teeth into, something that has layers and you can explore the dimensions of. There's always those two sides battling it out, or getting along if they want. So right after the release of Lonerism in 2012, he really wanted to dig deeper into this newer direction, and he began to work on Currents in his home studio, where he didn't have a lot of equipment. When it comes to the actual making of Currents, Kevin wasn't really sure of when the album really began to form, stating in an interview with Consequence, "There's never really a start and never really an end either. It ends when I run out of time, basically. Or someone just pulls the plug." I asked someone to pull the plug. I was about to absolutely fall off the edge. I'm recording all the time, especially when I'm at home. But Parker had an idea that an album was heading in the direction of being completed when he had about 10 or 20 songs ready. According to Rolling Stone, Kevin wanted the making of Currents to be the opposite of the creative process of making the acid rock album Lonerism. For Lonerism, he spent months in Paris in an apartment making that album, which he deemed as torture. He talked about this in the Rolling Stone article. "I felt like I was going insane. I wasn't looking after myself mentally, nutritionally, but I wound up falling down completely the same hole again." And this is kind of a theme during the making of Currents, as he became more obsessed and grew to isolate himself from other people more and more. Going off the previous making of videos that I've done so far, it's been a very collaborative process between an artist who would reach out for help to bring their artistic vision to life. But Kevin was doing damn near all of it by himself. And he dove further into this perfectionism in an interview with Maxim and The Guardian. "I felt like this way the album is even more my heart and soul, my blood, sweat, and tears. I don't want to say it's a control thing, that I need to be controlling every fraction of the sound, but I suppose that's a part of it too. I guess it just comes from obsession." And he also stated with Billboard, "Things flow easier. The flow is the most important thing for me for recording." And on the actual process with The Guardian, when I've got to finish an album in the next 6 months, then it's all day, every day. I wake up, listen to what I did the night before, then fiddle. At some point, life outside the studio fades into the distance. That's how I know that I'm into it. If I stay level-headed and sane the whole time, I'd probably be a bit disappointed, because it would mean that I didn't give it my all, that the music wasn't powerful enough to consume me. He also shared that in the same article, he wasn't happy with the project when he was asked directly if he was happy with it. "There's still things I'd change. I just have to set myself a deadline. I've never been 100% happy with anything at the time of doing it. You stop hearing things that people are going to hear the first time they hear it. You become deaf to the potency of a melody or a chord change, and you're just listening to how loud the hi-hat is." Which makes sense now, knowing all of this, because if you've heard The Slow Rush, the album that follows Currents, I believe the first single from that album was Borderline. I remember sitting in the World of Beer restaurant and I heard that song for the first time and I was like, what is this? What is this? Pulled my phone out. I was like, yo, what is this song? Downloaded it, became obsessed. that song now sounds different from how it originally sounded. I legitimately listened to the original version of Borderline more than the album version that's on the Slow Rush. And I'm bitter. I'm bitter because why isn't that version also like on the B-sides? For some reason, I love the original version of Borderline the most. And Borderline was the first song that had me hooked on Tame Impala. Of course, I heard The Less I Know, The Better, and New Person, Same Old Mistakes, especially thanks to Rihanna, Queen, who will never drop another album. But I heard that song because of her cover on Anti, and also I feel like Atlanta, one of my favorite shows ever, I think they might have featured that song in one of the promos for the show, so that also got me double hooked on that song. But Borderline was when I was like, yo, I'm a fan now. When's the album coming? Listen, when it comes to Borderline, I will stand 10 toes down by myself if I have to, because I prefer the original version, still to this day. When it comes to the title of the album, Current, this is a reference to the abandoned South Fremantle power station, which is a former oil and coal-fired power station in Western Australia, where inspiration was found for the writing of the album. Near the South Fremantle power station, there were beaches that were nearby, with one of them being Fremantle South Beach, where Parker would spend a lot of time writing the lyrics. He spoke about these locations and how it helps him out creatively in a novel, Freo Groove, Musicians of Fremantle by Bill Lawrie and Claire Moodie. A lot of the songs on Currents have passages that were directly inspired by the powerhouse and doing laps of it. It is scary and confronting, but such a beautiful thing. There are many things that seep into your music, and one of them is where you live. I suddenly remembered the value of being somewhere serene and beautiful and getting inspired in that way. He also bought the home where Currents was recorded, sharing with USA Today that it really changed his perspective about where he saw himself and where he belonged. But he also allegedly rented a house 4 hours from Perth to brainstorm some drum ideas, which I found in the Paste article. And he would save ideas for songs using a voice recorder on his phone, according to Grantland, and wrote a lot of the songs on a drum machine per Electronic Beats. It was a little bit hard in terms of instruments while recording the album, because while it was guitar focused, a lot of Kevin's gear wasn't around due to touring. As he shared with Premier Guitar, for whatever reason, I had a few more synths around me this time. And we were touring so much off of lonerism that my guitar and pedals were usually halfway between one continent and another while I was at home. We finished one tour in, say, Europe, go home for 2 weeks, and all of our gear, including my guitars and pedals, would be on their way to South America. I didn't even have my favorite guitar, my Rickenbacker, with me a lot of the time, so that was a factor. Parker shared a little bit more about combining the guitar with the synth elements in the album. One of my favorite ways to use a guitar is to find new flavors with it. But there's an organic sound that comes out of a guitar that nothing else can really replicate. It's almost like a human touch. The way the album was going sonically and texturally, I wound up processing the guitars more. There are guitars on every track, but they come in every now and then, more as an outside element or answer to other sounds. I've always written songs that feature synths and guitars working together. The style of music on this one is more modern, for lack of a better word. Some of the chord progressions and rhythms are more R&B, and when you put rocking guitars on top of that, it can ruin it. So I had to be really careful with how I play the guitar, what types of chords I use, the types of licks I play, so that it worked with those other ideas. And then he also went into a little bit more detail about this with audio technology. It's the same pedal chain I've had for ages. Reverb, a bit of compression, a bit of overdrive. I have this Seymour Duncan rack preamp that I love. I DI all guitars. I haven't used an amp in years. In terms of instruments, Kevin used the Roland Juno 106 and Sequential Circuits Pro 1 synths like he used for Lonerism, but also included a Roland JV 1080 synth module with the Sequential Circuits drum tracks for the electronic drums. In the same article, when it came to drums, Kevin shared, "The kick is a vintage Tame kick I've had forever. It was a bit of a range this time. Between several mics to just one, it really just comes down to how set up the studio is at the time I'm inspired. If I'm inspired to record some drums and there's only one mic there, I'll just say, F it. Just record it with one mic and go with it. I used a Shure SM7 on a lot of stuff for drums and vocals. A lot of the drums were a cross between the real kit, a sampler on Ableton with some deep and woofy for the kick, and some drum machine sounds. I'm in love with the Sequential Circuits Drum Tracks drum machine. It's my favorite drum machine. I record a lot of claps myself and use them as a set sample. I just recorded a bunch in a row with a different hand position each time and put them all together at once, spaced slightly apart. And there is even more shared in that article. I got a few new keyboards. All I had last time was a Roland Juno 106 and a Sequential Circuits Pro 1. I've got a Roland JV 1080 synth module you can plug a MIDI keyboard into. An audiophile would think some of the patches are the cheapest, plasticky sounds, but for me, they're so romantically nostalgic. Because they're the sounds I remember from when I was growing up in the 90s, the sounds that remind me of something I heard on the radio in the car. That's the truest kind of nostalgia I can find. Even though they're sort of cheap sounds, they're deeply fulfilling. There's a lot of that on the album. Glistening FM synth electro roads like a digital clav. But the Roland JV 1080 seriously played a major role within the album. Reverb Machine also has a really great article dedicated specifically to synths. Like, they've got little samples of things that you can play around with so you can hear like the little bits of the songs, and I almost screamed. So if you're into that, I'd recommend that you definitely read through it. But Currents itself was recorded using Ableton Live with analog summing equipment to add more color to the stereo bus, as stated by Audio Technology. It's also very falsetto heavy and utilized a vocoder. The album was supposed to be released in January of 2015, but Kevin ended up delaying the album's release several times, including delaying the album in May of 2015. He mentioned this in an interview with Triple J, where in the article it says Kevin had, quote, 2 songs to go that weren't finished, when he was already jetting his way to New York to present the album to the label. According to Stereo Gum, the 2 songs were Reality Emotion and New Person, Same Old Mistakes. Despite the deadline, he said with Triple J, I thought I was going to be able to do it. I spent the whole day before the flight running off the final mixes. One of the reasons for the delay being that he was self-conscious about the honesty of the lyrics according to Rolling Stone, as well as some of the details within the music made it harder for him to enjoy the work once it was done. But he did say this in a Rolling Stone Australia article, every album I do becomes more and more personal. I become more and more confident in myself as an artist to bare my soul. I definitely consider this album to be the best lyrically, which is why I made an effort not to bury the message of the songs in delay and reverb. It's something I made myself do, even though towards the very end, I started getting that same old self-consciousness around my lyrics. In the Spin Magazine article, they talked about how the previous Tame Impala albums did feel like the lyrics were a little bit harder to hear and understand, but Kevin still wanted everyone to get the meaning of the songs, hence the lyrics being in the booklet that comes with the albums. And with Spin, he shared this when it came to deadlines. I definitely need deadlines. I would keep working on it forever. I would never stop. So I set myself a deadline and found myself racing towards it. I'm a procrastinator. I always think I'm going to do something twice as inspired tomorrow, so I'll hold off. It's like that saying, you never finish an album, you just run out of time. And that's what it is. But it's a blessing in disguise because it forces you to make decisions there and then, which in the end makes for good art. I hate being pushed for time, but at the same time it makes you lock things in. And he told Pitchfork, quote, I still think this album is completely unlistenable. That's crazy. During the making of Currents, Parker began to learn about the Saturn return, which is basically a life transition that's studied by astrologists, and he also told Billboard, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on my life in the past and what's ahead of me. To hear that a Saturn return is actually a well-known thing, a huge time of transition for people at this age, 29, was fascinating. I was halfway through the making of the album when I heard about it. And it gave what I was doing a lot more meaning. Suddenly things made more sense. And I am completely here for it. I am very interested to see how the Saturn return will affect me as well, being almost 30 years old, which is funny to say, because I'm like, how the hell did I get through high school and all that already? Time is just not real, I'm telling you. When it comes to the meaning of Currents, some think that the album is about a change within oneself that happens following a breakup, since it is known that Kevin and his girlfriend, Melody from Melody's Echo Chamber, broke up. That's some music that I need to get into. According to Spin, Kevin describes the album's theme as a transitional period and accepting these changes, stating, "It's about this deep feeling of transition in your psyche." He also said this about the meaning of currents within ME. "It could seem like I'm talking to a partner or a friend, but it's really me talking to myself, another part of myself, to my old self, that part of me that resists change and wants me to stay as I am." I think this part from Paste is really important in terms of the album's meaning. I try to take the emphasis away from the romantic side of it, because as much as I sing about something that can be interpreted as a relationship starting or ending or whatever, if I sing about breaking up with someone, for me it's equally about breaking up with yourself or breaking up with a part of your own personality. But generally, the album is meant to have a consistent, ongoing theme of personal transition. It's meant to be about someone that's realizing they're changing as a person in ways that they didn't always want to, or that they didn't think they would change into. That's what the title Currents was meant to mean. These unstoppable forces, the parts of you that are trying to change you. And Kevin mentioned this in an Electronic Beats article, which I thought was interesting in terms of like general thoughts for the album. Some people focus purely on what the sounds say to them. The production style forms their opinion of how optimistic or pessimistic an album is. For me, Currents is meant to be about looking forward and a sudden adoption of confidence. Suddenly, this interior voice is declaring what they are and what they want, as opposed to the other albums, which are more self-questioning. The overall consensus on Currents was that it's heartbreaking and really sad, which kind of confuses me because Lonerism was really dreary in comparison. Lyrics are quite defeated, and Lonerism in general has a depressed tone to it, yet people were saying it's really upbeat and positive. It's weird that I always seem to have the opposite interpretation of music. That's what makes music so great. He also stated, "I always thought a sad song with sad music and sad lyrics is one-dimensional. When you juxtapose positive lyrics with a melancholic sound, suddenly you have this weird friction that plays with your emotions. That's one of my favorite things to do. I gravitate towards that musically. Love songs like that. I really do. Songs that slap you in the face emotionally. This beat is so fun and colorful and joyous, but the lyrics will literally kill you. Love it." The cover for Currents and the singles were done by musician and artist Robert Beatty. This guy has made some pretty amazing cover art. He did an interview with a website called ISO 50, and he talked about his experience making the cover art for Tame Impala. Kevin's ideas for the album artwork were all based on turbulent flow, the way liquid or air flows around objects. He sent over a bunch of images of diagrams that I took inspiration from. Everything was very open, and they let me interpret things in my own way. It worked well with the kind of stuff I've been interested in doing lately. I've been trying to incorporate more op art and more techniques into the record covers, and this was the perfect opportunity. He also referenced the works of these artists that I will throw up on the screen somewhere because I don't want to butcher anybody's names. I almost screamed when I found a link to Kevin's Ask Me Anything on Reddit from 2015. Please pull it up, read it. It's so cute. It's the cutest thing. Just reading through his AMA thread and seeing how he responded to everyone that, you know, the questions that he answered and how he responded to those people made him just seem like a really nice, down-to-earth guy. The type of way that doesn't sometimes come out or translate when he's being interviewed, I think. And that happens with a lot of artists, but I think he might be someone else that comes off like really shy or reserved. It's funny timing reading something like this with the newer interviews that he's been doing to promote his newer album that's coming out, Deadbeat, because it's time, man. Like, time, night and day, reading something like that, and then these interviews that are coming out, there's a difference. People are saying he's kind of trolling with these new ones, but I don't know. I don't know yet. Just wait till the album comes out. I can't wait. Back to the album cover art. He shared this in his Ask Me Anything. The current album cover was inspired by this type of diagram I remember seeing a few times that popped in my head when I was trying to visualize the album's theme, I guess. I think it's called vortex shedding. Basically, it's what happens when an object is moving through fluid or air, etc. The fluid in front of it is calm and flat. As the object moves through it, it warps and mangles and leaves this trail of twisted and disrupted fluid. That's a terrible explanation. I'm sure an actual scientist could do it better. Either way, this is iconic. When it comes to the track list, with all this information that I found, wasn't really able to find a lot of details for each individual song. I just know that they all deserve an equal amount of love because this man, the way he carried this entire project on his back, mind-blowing. So for the first track, Let It Happen, the song is really big on acceptance and being open to what's happening within you and around you and embracing it instead of running away from it, even if it all feels chaotic and messy. Kevin talked about the glitch moment with Rolling Stone. I've done it before on Feels Like We Only Go Backwards. It's exactly the same thing. I love that kind of thing. Going back to the album art, it's that organic realm that's being with in a digital way that tricks the mind. That synthetic repetition is the same with the music and Let It Happen. For some reason, that just does it for me. It makes my ears prick up. These days, there's all these ways to manipulate sound. As I was working on the song, I had this idea for the skipping bit. I love the idea that someone would be listening to the song on their car radio and they think that the radio was broken or go, something's not right. I feel that's a big part of what I do. Also, with Paste, he said, I never thought of a CD skipping once when I was doing it. I'm not sure what I thought it sounded like, but I was just obsessed with that kind of thing, like any glitch in a musical playback system. Records do it as well. I definitely do have a fetish for making people think something's wrong in the playback. It's all just ways of affecting people. For me, making a part of a song where it's skipping in a way that the listener thinks is unintentional is the same thing as putting flanger on a guitar, or making a song sound psychedelic, or doing a chord change that makes people feel the same way. For me, it's all the same thing. It's just to affect people, and for me, that's the most important thing about making music, affecting people. Maybe because I don't have the social skills to affect people socially. All those kinds of things are, for me, just ways of moving people. For me, it's about finding some way to alter your sense of what you're listening to, and alter your sense of which way is up and down. Whatever you can do to make people feel woozy, or not just standing on the ground, that's what psychedelia has always been about for me. All the stigmas and cliches aside, it's really just about transporting people, even just for an instant. I think these quotes could go for a lot of different Tame Impala songs in terms of feeling, just like moments and currents like Nang's Past Life and Love Paranoia, Obsessed with Love Paranoia, oh my god. Just by how the song made me feel and how he played with the production there on that specific track is one reason why that's one of my favorites in the album. It made me feel like I was floating the first time I heard it, which does also apply to a lot of Tame Impala songs. So glimmering, that kind of melancholy feeling because of the lyrics, and that uncertainty and security within the relationship and feeling just bad about everything. For the moment, this song is an example of Kevin disguising guitars as synths. As he told Premier Guitar, the lead line halfway through the moment is a weird, almost alien sounding patch that's one of my favorite parts of the album. It's got this really crunchy, Himalayan sounding lead. The same article also lists a few facts, like Parker tunes his guitars a whole step down from the standard D, G, C, F, A, D. Parker's Hofner bass was also a primary tool when making currents. Parker's pedals are divided between 3 boards. The first has a Roland GR55 synth running into a Yamaha mixer routed to a Radial J48 DI box. According to Under the Radar, Kevin kind of didn't remember making Yes, I'm Changing, which is crazy because the album's theme is about changing. And he said about this, quote, a weird experience because it was like it was someone else who made the song. I had no memory of imagining it. And then Kevin shared this about the song with Rolling Stone Australia. Generally, the right thing to say is like, oh, this isn't changing me. I'm still the same old bloke. And try to deny that the excessive amount of traveling or success aren't changing you. In the end, it does. It makes you see things differently. It completely rearranges your view on life. Eventually, one of the album highlights for me, definitely. And it's very easy to pick up on the fact that Kevin is playing the role of someone who is well aware that they are capable and are about to hurt the other person in the relationship, but kind of takes solace in knowing that that person will get away from him at some point, which can be interpreted as a breakup song. And he gave us a backstory about this song in particular in the Guardian interview. I find there's a lot of poetry, art, and songs singing about the plight of someone with someone changing in front of them. It excited me to tell the story from the other side. Trying to explain that it's not a bad thing, it's just natural. Eventually is a song about someone who knows they're about to damage someone. They're not going to be the one experiencing the pain that's dealt. They're the one dealing it. Arguably, it's just as emotionally crippling knowing that you're going to do that. It's just as heavy, it's just as torturous. It's not necessarily about that one situation. The inspiration to write a song comes to me when something has happened to me more than once. If it's happened to me more than once, it's probably happened to other people. Going back to that beautiful ass Reverb Machine article, they said this about Eventually. 2 of the main sounds in Eventually come from Parker's Roland Juno 106, a 1980s polysynth that he also used on Lonerism. Much of the rich layering in Eventually comes from the Roland JV-1080, a digital sampled bass synthesizer released in 1994. The JV-1080 is all over currents, such as the pulsating synthesizer in Gossip. In Eventually, it provides the orchestral, strings, and bass, choir, chimes, and outro lead. There are 2 main Roland Juno synths key patches in Eventually. The first is a dry organ sound that plays throughout the verses, and the second is a richer chorus Juno sound that plays during the choruses. For the song's riff, this is what Kevin shared with Audio Technology. It's just a guitar riff, bass riff, and a synth that's escalating in pitch to add some tension. I find that when you try and make something heavy, the less elements you have in it, the bigger it sounds. If you try and make a heavy riff with 7 guitars, 3 different types of synth, a bass synth, and a bass guitar, it really just muddies it up and loses impact. And he said this in his Reddit AMA. I have to say though, there's a song on the new album called Eventually that is still very moving for me to listen to, even after all of the listens and mixes. Oh, but I mentioned a song and not the others. Weirdly enough, I can still listen to each of the new songs and not feel the need to skip, which is rare for me after 2 years of working on them. But that little snippet was also in that Reverb Machine article. For The Less I Know The Better, Kevin told Under the Radar, "The Less I Know The Better shouldn't be on a Tame Impala album because it has this dorky white disco funk." Wow. Kevin used a Roland GR55 guitar synth to record, quote, every sound on the first 2 minutes of the song by using just a guitar with the MIDI pickup and his laptop per Guitar World. Just like The Moment, this song is an example of Kevin disguising guitars as synths, as he shared with Premier Guitar. The instrumentation in the verses of The Less I Know The Better is all guitar synth. There are organs, pads, even the bass is going through the guitar synth. Other than the drums and vocals, everything you hear there is guitar synth, and it has this sort of 80s synth disco thing. Still one of the highlights because it's so much fun to listen to. Disciples. Kevin shared a really good mindset when talking about Disciples specifically, and he said this with the Rolling Stone. That song was about 70s AM radio. An upbeat song, but it's totally different from the rest of the album. If I had an idea for a song or a soundscape, I would just go for it. I wouldn't try to make it fit into a preconceived notion of what Tame Impala was. If I had an idea for a song, I would just go for it and take it to its own extent, rather than try to box it in. One of my mottos for Currents was, give the song what it deserves. How would this song flourish? If this song could tell me what it wants, what can I give it? I try not to dictate it with any sensible or logical decisions. But he spoke more with audio technology about the actual making itself with the radio inspiration going. For the static on Disciples, I tuned my car stereo to an AM station that wasn't an actual channel, recorded the static, and mixed that in. Someone told me that AM didn't have anything past 6 kilohertz, so when I mixed it, I just looped everything past that point to make the whole track sound like it was coming out of an AM radio. I used a multi-band compressor and followed the middle band so it had that compressed, boxed-in sound. When you turn it off, the song suddenly opens up. I love switching between the two because your ears adjust to that set of spectrum. It's like, okay, this is what I'm listening to. Your ears forget about the sub and the super top. And all of a sudden, when they kick in, it's like the sensory, pleasurable thing. I'm also a stan for 'Cause I'm a Man. Going back to Kevin aiming to get everything close to perfection, he said, on one of these songs, I can't remember if it was 'Cause I'm a Man or The Less I Know, The Better, but I remember looking at the recording program I used and the number had hit 4 digits, 1057 or whatever. So I was like, oh my God, have I literally done 1057 vocal takes? Is that what this has come to? Though he clarifies it's not actually 1057 whole takes, I'll record and then just stop it and go back. Nope. Shit. Most of those takes were 2 seconds long. 'Cause I'm a Man was a controversial song at first, with there being assumptions that the song was pretty sexist. The song is about how weak men are basically, and how we make all these excuses, but really we're just these odorous male members of the animal kingdom. And he spoke a little bit about the song with Rolling Stone Australia. I maintain that I wouldn't put out a piece of music that I made as Tame Impala if it wasn't soulful and honest. But 'Cause I'm a Man has definitely got a different flavor to what I consider to be Tame Impala. Reality Emotion is one of the more popular songs here with lots of energy and a very fun chorus that benefits well from Kevin opening himself up to a more popular sound. New person, same old mistakes. Kevin stated with NME, the last song is meant to sound like the final battle between optimism and pessimism. A confrontation between the side of you that wants to progress and the side of you that wants to stay the same. It's an incredible song and is one that best represents the album's overall feel, with the idea of it being like an Avengers level threat, but Thanos and Infinity War, where it's like, oh shit, this is happening. When it comes to this song, you're probably not beating it because it's just that good. I know I probably wouldn't because it's just that good. And he kind of speaks to this with Stereo Gum about the lines, I can just hear them now. How could you let us down? I know that you think it's fake. Maybe fake's what I like. It's actually telling someone, I know what you think I'm doing is fake. It's like a sellout move. You think that this isn't real, but hey, you know what? Maybe I like fake. Maybe I'm allowed to like things that you think are disposable. When I say you, it's someone battling themselves inside their brain. It's the last song on the album. It's like this final showdown between this side of you that is embracing change, and there's a side of you that's resisting it. Insane album closer. Great decision to have this song last in the track list because it really speaks to the album's theme of just changing and growing and being apprehensive sometimes in that battle that goes on, that personal internal battle that goes on all of the time. It's very real. I know the singles End of Summer and Kind of Loser have been mixed between a lot of Tame Impala fans. I will say that End of Summer was kind of meh. Oh my god, not me dropping my toy. End of Summer was kind of meh to me at first. 2 weeks later, I was addicted. I was hooked to the song. Loser, I liked automatically. Oh my god. I was so hyped because when the teasers first dropped for the freaking video, I was like, ain't no way this is Joe. Ain't no way this is Joe. There's no way. And then the teaser dropped and it confirmed it. And I was like, oh my god, it's Joe. It's Joe. I'm doing a Joe video at some point. When I tell you, I'm completely obsessed with Joe's music. If you don't know, Joe from Stranger Things, it's Steve from Stranger Things. I did not know this man was out here making music in the way that he is, but I'm obsessed with this man's music. I will be doing a Joe video eventually because literally every day I listen to some of his stuff. Anyway, I know those songs have been kind of mixed with Tame Impala fans for the most part. From what I've seen, I can only speak from what I've seen. I just have to say, change within the entire Tame Impala discography, not only Currents as an album itself, but his entire discography. Change is a consistent factor for Tame Impala. That's just what it is. We maybe can have a feeling for certain elements and knowing that certain things will be present and persistent within Kevin's music. All of the Tame Impala albums have been different from the previous one, given End of Summer being totally different from anything on the Slow Rush and from Currents all the way back to Inner Speaker. What else is going to be on the album? Is it going to be more dance influenced? Are we going to get more songs like Loser that does have those a little bit more psych elements to it? I forgot to mention before that I do wish Joe was somehow featured on the song and not just the video, but I'm happy with what we got. See how I can't stop talking about Joe? I'm doing a video eventually, so it's fine. Change being a consistent factor within Tame Impala's music is something that I did notice, of course, before, but it's sunken in even more since I've done research for Currents. Naturally, change in terms of music takes a lot of adjusting, a lot of time to grow into being comfortable, if that's our thing, you know, to be comfortable with what's gonna be given to us with Deadbeat. You can't not expect change. And that goes beyond Tame Impala's music, to be honest. So even I have to remind myself of that sometimes. And I found this bit in the Pace magazine article that to me kind of plays into that flexibility and a bit of a backstory of Kevin not really sticking to one thing and feeling comfortable with kind of going into a specific genre's kind of adjacent genre. If you're someone who makes music and you're open-minded about what you can create, then there's no reason why you can't think of a bunch of completely different songs a day or imagine playing in different bands every day. The way that I kind of cut my teeth in music was playing with a whole bunch of guys in Perth. The Pond guys, the Tame Impala guys. We've always had a bunch of different side projects on the go that were all kind of different genres, and we would often play gigs in Perth with one or more of the bands that we're in on the same night. So like the first band that would be on might have been Tame Impala, then I'd get off playing the guitar in this slack rock band, and then play the drums for some other band. It's something that we kind of grew up doing, which is embracing as many different things as we can, just for the fun of it, for the experience of doing it. Because the experience of doing it was more satisfying than just having this one thing we stick with, and that being our musical identity. And I like this quote from Pitchfork: "I'm aware that there will be fans of my previous stuff for whom Currents doesn't resonate with as much because they've got their values set. But if I can convince a few die-hard rock fans that 80s synths can fit over a 70s drum beat, if I can help them to look outside of the square of traditional psych rock, then at least one mission is accomplished." There's a reason as to why each Tame Impala album feels like Kevin is veering away from the sounds from his previous works, but this is because he's a big fan of experimentation, and this is stated within the Rolling Stone: "Everything I do is a mutant cross between a challenge and something that comes naturally. Making music is so spiritual. I'm not a spiritual person, but music is sacred to me. Trying new things and experimenting is something I push myself to do. It's one thing to have love for all different kinds of music. It's another thing to bring them together seamlessly and make them coherent. Dude, I wish I could tell you that Kevin was personally like sponsoring me to push Deadbeat. I freaking wish I could tell you that. And I'm excited for next month. I can't believe that October is next month, but I'm excited. And Halloween's coming up. We love that. I also overall have a newfound appreciation for Kevin because the amount of work that he put into Currents and a lot of just everything that he does is insane to me. I literally, before researching for this album, had no idea that he did everything himself. So to think about that is crazy. I do think that he needs a hug because the anxiety and the way that he deals with perfectionism is a lot. So I think that he needs a hug and a lot of appreciation, which a lot of these artists do, because some of these labels are shady as hell. What are your favorite songs from Currents? Tell me, I want to know. How did the album make you feel the first time that you heard it? And how do you feel during re-listens? Because it's still one of the best albums that I've ever heard. To be quite frank with you, I still feel that way every time I listen to Currents. Anyway, leave me a comment because I love talking to everybody here. I appreciate every single last one of you who subscribed to my channel and who's left me a comment on any of my videos, newer or older. I do apologize for the long wait when it came to this video because it took me a good while to research everything and then finally to get around filming it because, yo, I was like this close to getting a second job. And that would have like stole all of my time from YouTube. If I'm being quite honest with you, I literally would not have had time to film, let alone film videos, but I would not have time to research anything. So I'm just out here. But anyway, you guys literally brighten my day. Anytime I see that anyone has left me a comment or has subscribed to my channel or liked a video or anything like that, just show me love in any type of way. It brightens my day. It makes me so happy. Appreciate you. My name is Rain and I will see you next time. Bye.